Welcome to Business Spotlight on Money Radio WPSE. Business Spotlight is heard weekly at this time on 1450 AM and 107.1 FM. Today's guest is Adam Mook, Compliance Department Manager at Logistics Plus. Can you discuss your role as manager of Logistics Plus Global Trade?
My role here at Logistics Plus is the manager of Global Trade Compliance, and our department spends about half of our time ensuring that Logistics Plus internally is compliant with all of the various global regulations and laws that oversee us as a 4PL and global freight forwarder. The other 50% of our time we spend with our clients, our companies that are moving freight, and we assist them with different services on the for-fee service side, where we're doing consulting engagements, we're doing trainings, seminars, identifying harmonized tariff codes, helping them if they need to export or import licenses. So on that side of things, we have services that we offer for a fee. We are also at Logistics Plus a full-service import customs brokerage company, where we do import brokerage for our companies who are importing into the United States. So we have a lot of various services, and again, some are offered to clients as a fee service-based, and then the other half of our time, as I mentioned, we spend internal to Logistics Plus, assisting with all the laws and regulations.
How has your role changed over the years?
In recent years, we've seen a lot of the laws and regulations that regulate products being imported into the U.S. and also the laws regulating items that are being exported out of the United States. These regulations and laws have always existed, but we're seeing them become in recent years a lot more heavily enforced. And as we talk today, we're going to talk about some of the new tariffs that the Trump administration has imposed and things of that nature. But what we're seeing in terms of a trend is a lot of our customers who have been moving freight with us that we've been working with a lot of years are now having questions related to, hey, does the product I import require a steel license? Or does the FDA have jurisdiction over my clothing that I'm importing into the United States? Because a lot of these companies are getting letters or they're being questioned by Customs Border Protection or the FDA or Bureau of Industry and Security or a number of different government agencies. So they come to us looking for guidance and assistance on navigating all these regulations that are becoming a lot more heavily enforced. And these laws are essentially, it seems like in the last year, they're like changing almost on a daily basis. So in our department, we have to stay abreast to these changes and educate ourselves in order to assist our customers to be able to answer their questions and guide them appropriately.
It's vital that these companies abide by these new laws, correct?
Correct. I'll give you an example. If you're a company that you're importing, say, a medical device into the United States, a lot of importers kind of realize or they think that only Border Protection Agency, CBP, has jurisdiction over that import. But the product itself that you're bringing into the country drives what other government agencies could possibly also have jurisdiction besides CBP. So the medical device example is regulated not just by CBP, but also the FDA. So the foreign shipper in the other country that's shipping the product to the U.S., that facility will have to be registered with the FDA. The importer themselves have to be registered with the FDA. And if you don't know this, if the company that's importing doesn't know this, they can be fined by the FDA for not having that registration in place for themselves and the foreign shipper. And CBP can also then hold the item if it's FDA regulated, meaning won't release it from the port or the terminal it comes in at until that importer and the foreign manufacturer have all their registrations in place. Another example could be there's something called the Lacey Act, which is U.S. law regulating different wood products coming into the United States. We have a lot of customers that import like wood furniture, and the Lacey Act basically drives back to what's the source, what type of wood is the furniture made out of. And if you don't have your proper documentation on the wood of the furniture when it's brought into the United States, there can be holds, there can be customs inspections, possible fines, or if you're not able to complete the answer of where is the origin of the wood for your furniture, the government won't allow the furniture to come into the country, and they'll either send it back or send it to general order. So those are just a couple of examples of all of these government agencies besides just Customs and Border Protection that could have jurisdiction over your product.
At Logistics Plus, you pride yourself on making your clients' transactions seamless. These new rules have put more of an emphasis on your department to make sure everything is seamless, right?
They have. That's exactly correct. We mentioned about all the laws and regulations becoming heavily regulated. How this is affecting them is that a company might receive a letter in the mail called a Customs Form 28, which is a notice from CBP that they're requiring more information about the item that you've imported or the shipment that it came in on. And this Customs Form 28 letter, which you get in the mail, basically is a sign that something's not right with either the information you provided on your documentation or something's not looking right with the product. So these customers then come to us and say, I got this in the mail. I've been importing this product for years now. Why all of a sudden are they questioning the harmonized tariff schedule code or questioning whether I have this type of permit or asking me about the functionality of the item? And it is because of the laws becoming so more heavily enforced. We do spend a lot of our time assisting companies that have an issue, something's currently stuck at customs, or they need help after the fact, as opposed to being more proactive. But once that issue becomes fixed, then they know what to do for future shipments.
On March 8th, President Donald Trump followed through with his pledge to impose stiff tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. The U.S. now levies a 25% duty on steel and 10% on aluminum. What are the short and long-term impacts of such a move?
Well, the short-term impacts, we've received a flurry of calls, as you can imagine, with customers that already had steel or aluminum product on the water, meaning the container was already on the vessel and in 10 to 15 days was about to arrive here at the port. And just because the items were already on the water, meaning they already departed origin in the foreign country on their way to the United States, didn't alleviate them from that 25% duty for the steel or the 10% for the aluminum when they were about to arrive. So suddenly all these customers are saying, hey, are my steel components or my aluminum products, are they subject to these tariffs? Usually when these kind of tariffs are imposed, there's a Federal Register notice that comes about, and they ask for public comment from the industry and different service providers in the logistics industry. And before they're actually imposed, typically there's like several months or even longer, maybe even a year, till they actually impose a new tariff or some kind of new law. But in this case, it just happened like at the snap of a finger, basically. There was a regulation that was published. It told us which products identified by harmonized tariff code were affected, both on the steel side and also on the aluminum side. We were flooded with calls. And then when that first was imposed, early March, I believe, and then fast forward like about a month or so later, the administration had provided a list of countries that were exempt from that list. And a lot of our customers who were originally terrified of having to pay this huge amount of money then found that the country of origin where their steel or aluminum products were from were exempt. But then as we're learning now, some of these country exemptions are just temporary. And then again, the 25% or 10% could be for all countries again.
Are you anticipating more tariffs in the future?
Yeah, we anticipate further. This won't be the first or last. Basically what happens is in previous administrations, they review products that are coming into the country. They look at the origins of the countries those are coming in at. And then they identify, are the products coming in, is the landed cost less than what the U.S. industry can produce these for? Are the tariffs kind of balancing out in a fair way, that it's fair trade across the board, across the world? So the steel and aluminum, they're saying that, hey, people are importing these steel and aluminum products into the United States for a lot cheaper than we can produce them here in the United States. So the current administration found, both on the steel industry and the aluminum industry, that there was an unfair trade balance with those type of products they identified per the HS code, and that's why they imposed these tariffs. And they also look at things like technology, like, say, Apple products. 10, 15 years ago, iPhones and iPads and things of that nature didn't exist. So they're always amending the harmonized tariff schedule and identifying appropriate duty rates and so forth. There's free trade agreements that exist now to allow even more free trade for products coming into the country that may have a duty but are coming in duty-free. But for these types of tariffs and so forth, and you'll see things called anti-dumping or countervailing duties, those are items that are impacted where the U.S. government believes there's unfair global trade going on and the U.S. is at a disadvantage. To summarize and answer your question, I'm sure there will be other tariffs on products that don't currently have high duties, but the government's going to be looking at what other U.S. industries are affected besides steel and aluminum in an unfair manner.
Gary Cohen, the National Economic Council Director, resigned after failing to persuade Trump against the tariffs. This is highly controversial and a move that has long-term effects, isn't it?
Well, the long-term effects are basically, so now you have U.S. importers that are bringing in steel and aluminum products, and this is affecting their sourcing. They're paying a lot higher price now on a landed cost basis for the components they're importing. And these components they're bringing in that they're sourcing are going to go into their finished product. Their finished product cost is now a lot higher. So when you're forecasting pricing of your end product and pricing all your components that go into that end product, you're taking in the duty rate and the import fees for your landed cost. When those will suddenly spike, you're at a huge disadvantage, and there's no timeline or guidance of how long will these steel or aluminum tariffs last. Are they temporary? Are they going to even increase? So it's really hard to forecast your long-term planning on your pricing when you have no idea what countries are exempt or how long will these tariffs last. So the fact I mentioned earlier is typically when countervailing or anti-dumping or any kind of other tariff or a quota that comes into play, usually have a lot advanced notice, typically 6 months or a year. And in this case, it just happened within days. It seemed like there was buzz on the news this was going to happen, and then he signed it into law. So companies didn't have a chance to react, and then their long-term planning is affected because of unknown factors of what their pricing is going to be for their components.
This had to make some of your customers panic, didn't it?
Yeah, we had one customer that had 2 containers on the water. They had $1.5 million worth of steel coil, and the HS code for the steel coil was subject to the 25% duty. And so you take 25% duty on top of $1.5 million, it adds up. That's cutting into their profit margin. They're actually losing money bringing the steel in. So what we ended up doing with that particular customer is looking to get their pros and cons of bringing the coils into what's called a foreign trade zone, where the product could basically sit there and they wouldn't have to pay the duty right away until they figure out, do we want to send the coil back? Are these tariffs actually going to be here long term? So that's the kind of route we took with them, because literally they had just shipped the 2 containers of the steel coil. They were on the water, expected to arrive into the port of Norfolk, Virginia, within 15 days after the tariff was announced. So then they were scrambling of what the heck to do. And that's just one example of many examples of similar cases all across the country with importers.
It really does force your department to have to adapt, doesn't it?
Yeah, on our team we have 2 licensed customs brokers, and so they're calling customs, they're calling all their contacts at CBP, what's your guidance here? And CBP was literally telling us, you know as much as we do. Then eventually a notice came out, and then we all read the notice, and then it became law literally within a few days. And they had specific dates. As of March 23rd, anything that's arriving into a U.S. port that is having one of these harmonized tariff codes that's subject to the steel or aluminum tariff, you're going to have to pay that duty. And so what ended up happening with that one example I provided with that customer with the steel coil, we had lined up a FTZ warehouse for the stuff to come in at, and 5 days before the containers were scheduled to come into the port is when the administration announced the country exemptions for the steel, and their product came from a European Union country, and EU member countries were listed as exempted countries, so it turned out the customer didn't have to pay the extra duty.
Has this been one of the biggest challenges to get around for your clients?
We view it as each individual client has their own unique challenges. But I'd say these new Trump administration tariffs have brought in a lot of new companies that we haven't really worked with before, with just calls of, hey, what do we do? What's going on? They may have been calling around different customs brokers, didn't have any clear answers. And so in fairness to all the other customs brokers, nobody knew what the heck was going on, let alone Customs and Border Protection either. So you have these companies with product in the water scrambling, calling whoever they can to try to get answers. So we did the best we could. And so we ended up finding a lot of unique scenarios, like bringing stuff into an FTZ or bonded warehouse, or then when the exemptions came out, helping the customers and other random companies that would call us to figure out, all right, well, what's the country of origin for your product? What's the HTS code? Finding out if it was exempt from the duties. A lot of those types of calls we were fielding. But like I said, it was challenging, but we're used to solving challenges, and this was just a new one that everyone was kind of going through together.
This is a great opportunity when something like this happens to create new relationships, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So we had some companies we have never dealt with before. We talked them through what was going on, and as the dust settled, and then in mid-April and early May, they called us up to move a couple shipments for them. So we did actually get some new customers out of all this. But yeah, a lot more to come with tariffs. I'm sure we'll be seeing other industries that are going to be saying, hey, well, if we got the administration to impose the tariffs for the steel and aluminum, I'm going to make a case to the Commerce Department that my industry is affected too and try to get some kind of tariffs on imported product too. We'll see what happens, but I think this is just the beginning, unfortunately, for importers.
How would a business in Northwest Pennsylvania who is listening to this program get in touch with Logistics Plus?
They can call myself directly. My office phone number is area code 814-464-1722. They can also go on our website. So anybody can call or email us at any time, any day of the week, and we'll get back to them with their specific questions.
International Monetary Fund Director Christine Lagarde said no one wins in a trade battle and warned that proposed tariffs could have serious negative economic impact. Your thoughts?
Well, we're seeing a lot of things in the news now with the U.S. and China battle where Trump is imposing certain products to have high tariffs from China. And we anticipate that to not just be with China, but with other countries, possibly in the future throughout the administration. So it's the same kind of concept as the imposed steel and tariffs, where you look at a particular group of products that you're sourcing from certain countries, and you look at the harmonized tariff code of the product. And if that harmonized tariff code is on the list, coming in from, say, China in this example, then you have to pay that duty if it comes into law. And there's unfortunately, no real way of getting around it. So some of the questions we field are companies that are saying, well, how do I get out of this? What companies can't do, it's important to know that we've gotten some questions saying, hey, well, can I just change my harmonized tariff schedule code to a product that's not affected? And the answer to that is absolutely no. Your code is a binding code for that specific product. You can't just choose an HTS code that has free duty or lesser duty than these imposed tariffs. So it's frustrating, and with China and possibly other countries that come, it's just kind of a wait-and-see game. And on the other side of things as well, with companies that are exporting to China, some of its agricultural products. So if you're a farmer in the Midwest and you're exporting soybeans to China, all of a sudden your customers are going to have to pay a lot higher duty to get those soybeans into China. So that's how China retaliated for the Trump administration's proposed duties on certain products. China said, all right, well, we'll lay the hammer down too. And that's kind of how this trade war with China has come about. So we'll see how it all plays out.
I know you work with your clients and local associations to provide training on subjects like Incoterms, import-export regulations, best practices, etc. Can you comment on why it's important for Logistics Plus to provide this sort of training?
Yes. One thing that we've done since Logistics Plus started our compliance department, actually the compliance department started because of these examples we're talking about this morning. Companies are coming to us with questions they have on what laws and what regulations govern my products that I'm importing and my items that I'm exporting out of the United States. So we provide training programs on a variety of topics, whether it's Incoterms, NAFTA, import requirements, export requirements. There's a variety of different aspects that we provide training on. And we tailor specific trainings for a company where we call them kind of employee trainings, where my colleagues or myself will go on site to an individual company. They'll have 15, 20 of their personnel there who are in the accounting department, shipping, receiving departments, international sales departments, and we tailor a training specific to their products that they're trading internationally, and then educate the company on what the laws and regulations and associated governing agencies that have oversight over those laws so that they understand when they're importing or exporting components or finished products, they know how to follow the laws and what to do, what paperwork is needed, and so forth. And those training programs have been a big success. We also do public seminars where we will offer like an Incoterms training program, for example, and then attendees from a variety of different companies will come to a public location where we do these trainings as well. So they've been a big success, and a lot of companies get a lot out of the trainings, and we'll continue to put them on into the future, and especially with all the changing laws and regulations as they evolve. That makes us evolve our programs and stay on our toes too. We partner with a lot of different local agencies, the Northwest Commission, Chamber of Commerce, Manufacturers Association, and other economic development agencies throughout the community. We'll partner with to either be a guest speaker at some of their events, or we'll partner together on joint efforts to market a program together.
What do you think, with your department, are your greatest strengths?
Our greatest strength for our global trade department is the service that we provide. And a lot of other larger, like your UPSs and your FedExes and larger companies, you're not really getting the same person every day that's hand-holding you through your shipment. So with us, as a smaller company, you get that personalized service. I'm the one, and my colleagues, Gretchen, Rosie, Tim, we're the ones that are actually talking with you and talking you through your questions, and we're the ones doing the trainings. And sometimes I don't know how we do as much as we do with the amount of customers we have. But I'd say it's our hands-on service that sets us apart from some of our larger competitors. And just the fact that we're passionate about what we do. Like personally, myself, I got involved in global trade and compliance shortly after 9/11 occurred. And in 2001, after that tragedy, there was all these import and export laws and regulations that were always there, always existed in our country. Then they became a lot more heavily enforced as the U.S. government was not only enforcing people coming in and out of our country, and began enforcing products coming in and out of the country. So the import permits, the export licenses, all those associated laws were coming to light. And so I started immersing myself in what are all these laws and regulations, because the trade industry wanted to know that. And as I came a few years later to Logistics Plus, and then we started the trade compliance department, literally every year there's been new things in the news or worldwide, and it's global. We don't just deal with the U.S. laws and regs, we deal with global laws and regulations. Because if you're importing or exporting, you're not just having to deal with the U.S. laws, you're dealing with the laws of the other country that you're either sourcing from or shipping to. So there's just so much to learn and so much to evolve, and it's really impossible for a small, medium-sized, or even really a large company that's engaged in international trade to know all of these different requirements for your products. So we kind of pride ourselves on being that partner you can come to with questions you have at any time on a specific country you don't really deal with that much, or these new tariffs, or whatever the case is, whatever the questions are, we've got a pretty solid team that we can find an answer for you. And if we don't have the answer ourselves, we have good partners globally that can get you your solution to your challenge.
Your passion and desire to help your clients is a common bond throughout Logistics Plus, isn't it?
It is. All departments, we all work together. Our compliance department is also assisting our North American division. If you're just shipping something across state lines from Pennsylvania to Ohio, there's certain regs that if something's hazardous material or those kind of things we deal with too, not just international.
Thanks for listening to Business Spotlight on Money Radio WPSE. Business Spotlight is heard Fridays at noon. Join us again next week as Roland Financial is in the Business Spotlight.